I'm very pleased and very proud to start this final session of Longevity Nation on this day after an amazing virus session. Really a continuation of the previous topic of expanding international cooperation. The session is called Ends and Means, Investing in Healthy Longevity, the Way Ahead, Visions of the Future. And this session is composed pretty much of world-leading organizations, world-leading visionaries, pioneers in the longevity field. Pretty much all of them are long-standing partners of Longevity Nation, of VETIC Association, of several of our projects. So I'm very excited to present the first speaker, Dmitry Kaminskiy, from Deep Knowledge Group, but also actually a consortium of organizations, also non-profits like Biogerontology Research Foundation, as well as Atlas Foundation and Longevity International, all of them members of International Longevity Alliance. We are real strategic partners. I mentioned at the beginning the online platform, Longevity Industry Ecosystem in Israel. That was pretty much Dmitry's work and of his organization that VETIC Association joined as a partner. So very excited to give Dmitry the floor. And last but not least, he is also originally from Moldova, like me. So there's another connection. So Dmitry, welcome on stage.
Ilya, thank you very much for introduction. It's my great pleasure to present today at Longevity Nation Conference. It's a pity, of course, that not many people can attend, foreigners can attend in person. Next year, definitely many of us will attend in person as it was last year. So today, I will, in my 15 minutes time slot, I will provide a brief overview of longevity industry framework and why sophisticated frameworks are crucial and essential for further industry growth, and in particular, attraction of additional financial resources towards aging research. So I'm general partner of Deep Knowledge Group. This is a consortium of non-profit and for-profit organizations. One of our analytical subsidiaries, Aging Analytics, was established in 2013. And since that time, we started to produce quite a lot of analytical reports specifically focused on aging research and longevity industry. Many of them are open sourced. In 2018, we produced a landscape of longevity industry, including science of longevity and business of longevity. And actually, in that period of time, we also designed the initial configuration of longevity industry framework. And this wording, longevity industry, was first time applied in that time in 2018. Since that time, we proceeded to work to enhance these frameworks, their accuracy, their precision, their sophistication. We are doing this during the last several years. So with every year, we do have more and more advanced frameworks. And there was also evolution of our analytical approaches. Like in the recent years, we are using mostly artificial intelligence to profile the industry, to extract more patterns. Based on that analytics, I published this book, Longevity Industry 1.0, defining the biggest and most complex industry in human history, actually in 2020. But now we already published second edition. I also published several other books, such as Biomarkers of Human Longevity. Apparently, biomarkers are very crucial to understanding how actually any aging research or health longevity interventions will work. I'm also working on a number of other books, such as Longevity Financial Industry or Longevity Industry 2.0. Now, we are considering that in 2020, we were at the initial stage of industry 1.0. By technology readiness level, the industry since that time, during the last few years, evolved quite substantially. So we're considering that in 2024, we are at stage of 1.4 by technology readiness level. This platform, Longevity International, this is open source platform where we are profiling just like entire industry. So, for example, 2 years ago, we placed at this platform 50,000 companies, 10,000 investors, and several thousands of other types of organizations, such as charities or associations. In the next several months, we are preparing to launch, to release new edition of this platform. In total, it will be 4 times bigger by quantity of organizations. So this time we'll profile and represented on the platform 200,000 companies, somehow directly or somehow related to longevity industry or aging research or maybe longevity financial industry, and 50,000 investors and several tens of thousands of other types of organizations, including various non-profits or research hubs. The major conclusions and analytics derived from that platform will be, it was presented in Longevity Industry Journal, and the new iteration will be again represented in Longevity Industry Journal. Just for your understanding, it will be around 500 pages in total, just this journal. And we are proceeding to work on more enhanced, more specified, more kind of sophisticated frameworks, which are kind of some of them are focused on specific domains and sectors of the industry. Now, about longevity industry in Israel. So the first time we profiled longevity ecosystem in Israel was in 2019. As Leah mentioned, we connect strategic partners. We have personal friends with Leah, but also since 2019, our organizations such as by Gerontology Research Foundation in UK. So we established partnership with the tech, and we just like literally making ties between UK and Israel, and establishing a little bit focused on what could be named like digital bridge for longevity research and longevity industry overall. Deep Knowledge Group was among sponsors and supporters for Longevity Nation last year in 2023. We again sponsor and supporters for this current Longevity Nation conference, which is happening this week, and will be definitely providing support for organization of conference next year. So here are some examples of how the Longevity in Israel platform is organized. So there is a lot of information, a lot of databases, interactive mind maps. This is like a beta version of new edition, which will be releasing probably in a month, including that there will be some kind of additional insights from this conference. And by the way, the count of organizations and there's, let's say, objects at the platform grew 14 times during these 5 years since 2019. There is some logic why so substantial growth. So number one factor that it's indeed a lot of new, let's say, scientists or companies or investors, they started, to be focused on longevity industry. The other kind of factor that we extending our framework, we are kind of extending our classification, what could be potentially considered or directly considered as longevity related or related to healthy longevity, healthy lifespan. For example, organizations which are operating in financial industry or even longevity real estate. I will touch base on this later. And then another notable factor that many health tech related, biotech related, biomedicine related organizations, which previously were branding themselves as biotech or health tech, they now, many of them started to use word longevity. And with that, we just like, they can naturally becoming self-associated with longevity industry. Some more examples of how the platform actually operates. There's a lot of, there's, let's say, interesting information, including geomaps. Now, if we are currently at the stage of longevity industry 1.0 or 1.4, so how we can ensure and accelerate transition towards 2.0? And what does it mean longevity 2.0? Longevity industry 2.0. So if you will, depending on how you will classify what does it mean particular longevity industry, so we will come up in terms of assessment of the industry between several tens of billions, at least, up to several tens of trillions of Why so? Because if to assess health tech market of just United States, annual turnover is $5 trillion. So just like per year, turnover $5 trillion. So this like tens of trillions size, for instance, will be even quite conservative. Now, to transition further, how we can make so that besides venture investors, besides some kind of let's say angel investors, etc., institutional investors will come up. How big pension funds, insurance companies, even sovereign wealth funds, how they will come up into the industry, including that they will start to provide more additional financial resources towards aging research in particular. So there is quite a lot of progress on establishment of metrics or parameters on which is helping to structure and standardize the industry and provide some kind of performance metrics for any investors or any kind of especially institutional investors, big financial institutions like which are operating with hundreds of billions or maybe even trillions of dollars under their management. So apparently further work on biological metrics should be made, like on biomarkers. There's happening quite a lot of activities regarding performance of longevity companies, including public traded longevity companies. And there's quite a lot of activities regarding entire national economy. So how success or financial success or vice versa, non-success of the nations actually dependent on aging population or vice versa on progress in longevity medicine or preventive medicine. So during last several years, we saw quite substantial growth of the industry. There are some kind of different assessments what is happening right now, because we do see that in some particular domains of longevity industry, there's abundance of capital resources. In some sectors, there's still deficits, but overall, situation now is substantially better compared to how it was, let's say, 5 years ago, especially 10 years ago. If previously the major factor was deficit of resources, by now there is quite enough resources, but however, further structuring is required for further growth. And therefore, we will, there's a lot of organizations which are working on, let's say, biomarkers of aging, on even some financial instruments structuring, but further work is required here. And we on our side, on behalf of DeepManage Group, we will be proactively participating further in this work. So we will be designing further more enhanced, more sophisticated frameworks. Many of them more specified towards longevity financial industry, but not only financial. For example, longevity governance, like how different policymakers, can assess what is positive or negative for their nations. My new upcoming book, Longevity Industry 2.0, is actually how to optimize the trajectory, the tech-driven roadmap for transition towards more structured, better organized industry. And once again, for big financial institutions, for big institutional investors, for them, metrics and standards are quite important. Now, if longevity industry will grow up to such extent that it will be structured so well that it will be considered or become considered as new asset class, so essentially it will become commodity, and this will kind of ensure that there will be no limit at all in terms of financial resources, including for aging research. So therefore, this is our priority, making frameworks, making parameters, making metrics, assessing them our own, but also kind of just assessing other metrics like of other experts or science, for example, in economics. Again, this is a teaser of my upcoming book in that series of longevity industry books. And deep tech commoditization, longevity commoditization, this is overlapping things, including, for example, apparently AI industries, enhancing growth of deep tech industry, but also longevity industry. So current status of longevity financial industry, there is tens of thousands of health tech related investment funds overall, There's already hundreds of particular longevity-focused investment funds, mostly venture funds, but there are already a couple of even hedge funds. Now there's hundreds of longevity-focused public trade companies, or companies related, like some of their products are related to longevity. There are already several. This is very notable. Recently, during this year, they were launched mostly in the United States several exchange-traded funds with particular attraction of longevity-related public trade companies. And then there's already several, to our own knowledge, longevity-related indexes and quite a lot of structured financial products, derivatives established on some, so they are tradable on stock exchanges. Now, however, things are apparently good, but we need to make them better, and therefore we need to work further on better understanding, on better assessments, better landscaping on all what is happening in longevity industries, apparently, and first of all, in aging research, but also to provide better frameworks for financiers, for investors who maybe do not have any clue about aging research, but apparently they want de-risk their investors, and if there will be de-risk metrics, so for them it will be, the framework how to deploy more and more capital on just a much grander scale. In our next edition of longevity in Israel, there will be particular two new components: longevity financial industry in Israel and even longevity real estate. So it's like healthcare. Wellness facilities, so there's hotels which are focused on wellness. Then just briefly, a couple of words about our current projects, what we're doing in the Knowledge Group during this year and next year. So there's a lot of activities overall. In particular, for example, Longevity Club, this is a fintech marketplace for health tech and longevity-related, health span-related projects, products, there's activities. It is integrated with longevity banking card. We are also working on new editions of big data analytical, investment analytical dashboards. Actually, several tens of them. Some of them are covering entire industry. Some of them are very specifically narrow focused. This is some examples of techniques which we're using. There's a lot of AI techniques, but also a lot of visualization techniques to understand better what is actually happening, what is going on. This is example of one new dashboard, longevity real estate. So longevity real estate is the new fancy trend in longevity industry during this year. A lot of companies, a lot of real estate constructors are actually refurbishing hotels towards wellness hotels, or they are kind of building even from scratch, in some cases, entire longevity skyscrapers. So it's like new buildings, like brand new buildings, but specifically designed for extra healthy living. There are notable examples in Miami, in Dubai. Quite a lot of things are happening also in Europe. However, my personal interest, is dedicated to this slide, which is, I hope, understandable and speaks for itself. So we are considering that there's something much beyond than wealth, and health is the actual new wealth. During last several months, I'm specifically in our team, I'm creating this big data analytical system. So we are, with some AI techniques, we're analyzing more than 10,000 clinics overall, advanced clinics globally, with specific focus on longevity clinics. We're counting them already kind of around 300 globally. And we're analyzing not just clinics, but there are medical protocols, like protocols which we establish in those most advanced clinics, but also we have structured them as individual blueprints. So what, depending on specific kind of condition or specific patient or better client, ideally not having any illnesses. So what are the most sophisticated and most reasonable in terms of combination of efficiency and price? So what is the most advanced, at the same time most reasonable techniques approach? So we are using quite sophisticated frameworks for this matter to assess protocols and also their technology readiness level. And to conclude my presentation, so in our view, longevity industry is evolving quite good, like especially like some kind of culminations was happening in 23, 24. Apparently, there will be a lot of new activities in 25. But overall, we shall tend, to progress, accelerate further growth of the industry, and especially make more and more better frameworks, which will help big institutional investors to deploy more capital into this industry, including to aging research. These are several our, let's say, projects which will be upcoming in the next several months. So if you're interested, please keep an eye. Major website will be Longevity International for open source analytics. If you'll be interested in some our other projects, maybe like analytical dashboards, or maybe longevity fintech projects, investech projects, etc. So these are our major coordinates. Please feel free to get in touch. And with that, thank you very much for your attention. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you very much, Dmitry. Questions from the audience? No questions from the audience? Then thank you very much, Dmitry, and look forward to expansion of our cooperation for longevity industry in Israel and everywhere.
Yes, Ilya, and apparently we shall work for the next year even more kind of in coordinated manner, because next year this conference should attract more foreign participants, speakers, as last year, in person.
No, next year we are planning to have it huge. This year, see, even during the war and the constant attacks, we have an amazing conference with a lot of Israeli community coming together. Next year, hopefully there'll be peace. You will see something else during Longevity Nation 25. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right. Then the next one is José Luis Cordeiro online. Yes. Yes. Then let me first introduce you, José. Also, as I said, this whole session is composed of long-term friends and partners. So it's my great pleasure to introduce another friend and partner, Dr. José Luis Cordeiro, with the Millennium Project, but also with several other initiatives. Also a member of International Longevity Alliance, individual and institutional. And he will talk about the nascent longevity movement in Latin America and the Middle East. Welcome.
Yes, Ilya, it is a pleasure to be with you, and especially to talk about after Dmitry, whose work I greatly admire and use. In fact, in my book, The Death of Death, I quote him several times. He's compiling so much valuable information. So let me tell you, I just organized the biggest event in Spain about longevity. We had over 500 people registered in the most iconic place, in the College of Medical Doctors, where all the doctors, the physicians get together, and where the first Nobel Prize of Medicine of Spain gave his classes. So in this beautiful place, we had 500 people registered, and we also organized a march for longevity. Again, during Longevity Day, which is October 1st, we went to the most beautiful place in Madrid, where Real Madrid celebrates the best football team in the world, which is the Cibeles Fountain and the City Hall. We began there our march for longevity, a rally for longevity. We were also in the local government, in the Congress of Spain as well. And we went to the European Parliament office in Madrid. We gave the Longevity Declaration of Madrid to all the authorities so that we can declare Madrid as a blue zone, because Madrid has the longest life expectancy of the European Union. And in fact, it has the highest life expectancy than the supposedly blue zones today. Yes, Madrid has a longest life expectancy than Sardinia or Okinawa in Japan, or Ikaria in Greece, or Nicoya in Costa Rica, or Loma Linda in California. So if those places are blue zones, Madrid should be a blue zone. And that is our goal, to talk about longevity. This year, there have been many things all throughout Latin America, like Vitalia. Vitalia was born in Honduras to make death optional. This is a big project, a continuous pop-up city that will be there to speed up developments in longevity. In fact, famous people like Brian Johnson was there to get his therapies as well. I gave several presentations, not only in Honduras. I went to another island in the Caribbean, Margarita Island, where we had the first Latin American conference on longevity. And from Margarita, I was in Panama. In Panama, we also talked about longevity during Futures Day, which is March 1st. And then it was also in Peru talking about longevity. And then in Mexico. So many things are happening all over Latin America. I am really excited, particularly because the new president of Argentina, Javier Milei, is an immortalist. An immortalist, yes. He believes in longevity and indefinite lifespans. In fact, as I mentioned, immortality. And he cloned his dog, which is incredible. And he said that my book is his favorite book. Not many times you get a president to say that your book is their favorite book. So The Death of Death is his favorite book, and I am really, really proud about that. Then also in the Middle East, many things are happening. I will be in Dubai Future Forum in 3 weeks talking about longevity and the death of death. In fact, last November and December, I was with my friend and colleague, Dana Marduk, for the announcement of the biggest longevity prize, or the biggest prize in history, which is the $101 million prize, partially financed by the Evolution Foundation in Saudi Arabia. This is handled by the X Prize Foundation and my friend Peter Diamandis. We work together not only at MIT, but also at Singularity University, and I fully support this X Prize for longevity, $101 million, mostly financed by Saudi Arabia, but also other institutions. And Evolution has an endowment of $20 billion to be using about $1 billion per year. So this is a lot of money coming into the field. And particularly this prize, which is very close. The goal is by 2030, in 2030, to be able to biologically rejuvenate at least 10 years in patients, in people between 65 and 80. Now it has been actually expanded to even younger people, people in their 50s, 10 years, up to 20 years of biological rejuvenation by 2030. To me, this is totally revolutionary, disruptive. This will change our industry, the longevity industry. I have also been going to Dubai to talk about these things in the Museum of the Future for the Dubai Future Forum, where I talked about everlasting life with other world leaders in this field, like James Kirkland from the Mayo Clinic, and also Alex Shavoronkov from In Silico Medicine. So many people talking about this. This was all over the news in Dubai, also in Abu Dhabi, and as I mentioned, in Saudi Arabia as well. And this relates to the initiative that began between the Middle East and Latin America, Healthgevity Nation. The idea is to democratize healthgevity, health and longevity throughout the world, using exponential organizations, and to have a massive transformational purpose. This was started by my friend and colleague, Dana Marduk, who currently is based in Iraq, but also working a lot in Iran and all over the Middle East. Like I mentioned, we were together in the United Arab Emirates. We were together in Saudi Arabia. And now we are looking for ambassadors all over the world. We started again, I repeat, in the Middle East. Dana Marduk was covering that part, and I was covering Latin America. So you can see now we have many ambassadors throughout the world, over 40 ambassadors in all continents in the world. And not only just the Middle East, where this began with Dana Marduk covering Iraq, Iran, Syria, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Israel, United Arab Emirates, and many more. And in Latin America, as I mentioned, all the way from Mexico down to Chile and Argentina. But now we are also growing all over the planet internationally. We have some ambassadors in some cities in the USA, in Canada, in Russia, in China, in India. The goal is to have ambassadors all over the planet to accelerate this grassroots movement of the Healthgevity platform, when people will be able to connect to the ideas of Healthgevity wherever they are and have the benefits of all of these ideas. This Healthgevity platform will connect individuals, organizations throughout the planet with the latest knowledge on Healthgevity. And we will have courses, online courses, and maybe also some physical in-person courses in some big cities. We will therefore have Healthgevity schools, maybe a Healthgevity university in the future as well. We will have Healthgevity certificates, and we will create Healthgevity centers around the world. We are planning, hopefully, the first one will be in Vancouver, Canada, next year in 2025, hopefully. And we will also have Healthgevity products, working on alliance with other companies that are working on this. And this is to popularize, to massify, to democratize everything related to Healthgevity. And therefore, we will need a Healthgevity coin, which will help us with the Healthgevity economy, so that we can start our Healthgevity cruises. You could have a fantastic opportunity to join one of these cruises in the Caribbean, in the Mediterranean, or in the Pacific. Those are three main places to have this Healthgevity cruise, this Healthgevity journey for your health. And we will have a Healthgevity center in the cruise ship, and you will have all kinds of tests available: genetic test, gut health test, biological age test, full body checkup test, infrared light therapies, many other therapies, cryotherapies, ozone therapies, hypermax oxygen therapy. So we want to democratize this throughout the planet, in countries and also in cruises throughout the world. This will help us to eventually move forward from this grassroots initiative and to create a Healthgevity parliament and maybe a Healthgevity president. And this was created by artificial intelligence. And you can see that the first Healthgevity president will be a woman. And this is very good because women are very concerned about Healthgevity, like all people, but women are also clearly involved in this initiative. And about half of our ambassadors are women. So please join this initiative that is starting Healthgevity Nation throughout the world to democratize Healthgevity. And I keep on doing this also personally with my publications, with my book that has become a global bestseller, first in the Romance languages, in the languages derived from Latin, like Spanish, Portuguese, and French, soon coming in Italian as well, in Romanian, the major Romance languages, but in all languages. In fact, it is also already in the top three languages in the world. And thanks to my friend Dana Marduk, he translated the book in Arabic. So it is in Arabic. Now he's translated it into Persian, Farsi, Iranian, and then also into Kurdish. So it's going to be in many other languages in the Middle East. And other friends in Israel are also working on an Israeli edition, in a Hebrew edition. So my goal is to spread this good news throughout the planet. It is important. And I repeat, an Israeli friend, Sharon Gal-Or, that is connected here now, is helping with the translation of the book so that we can have an Israeli edition. Because not only the big languages of the world, which are Spanish, English, and Chinese, but all the languages, including the ones in the Middle East, I repeat, Hebrew, Arabic, Persian, Kurdish, and also Turkish. It is already in Turkish, and many more languages throughout the world. I have been also pushing this politically. I was a candidate for the European Parliament. I got several thousand votes, but not enough to be member of the European Parliament. But the idea is slowly getting into politics, and I am really excited about this. Taking these ideas into politics because it is important, government participation. And my goal is to change the old logo of Spain. At the time of the Roman Empire, 2,000 years ago, Spain was the country of non plus ultra, nothing far beyond Spain, because Spain was the end of the Roman Empire. There was nothing beyond Spain. But then Spain discovered America in 1492, or rediscovered America, or made contact again with America in a big way. And the logo of Spain changed from non plus ultra to plus ultra. And now I want to change it to Vita plus ultra, life far beyond, because Spain is one of the leaders of the longevity movement in the world, with top researchers and a lot of things happening, including, as I mentioned, the longest life expectancy in the European Union is Madrid. Longer life expectancy than the so-called blue zones. So this is our goal. And this beautiful image is from Dmitry Kaminskiy and his group, Longevity International. This ecosystem is growing. In the past, it was in millions. Now it is in the order of billions, and soon it will be in the order of trillions. This will be the longest, the biggest, the most important industry humanity has ever seen. It is, again, going to reach trillions of dollars. That is why all the technology companies are moving into health and longevity. Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Amazon, they are all moving into longevity. So just some final comments. Please read The Death of Death on your preferred language, hopefully in over 20 languages next year, including Hebrew. And thank you so much for your attention. And I am happy to answer some questions. Or we still have 3 minutes of my 20 minutes, so I can show the video. But I prefer to have questions because you can imagine the video of our event and our rally for longevity in Madrid. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a question, and I suggest, you know what, we're a bit short on stuff to read ourselves the questions on chat, but if you look at the chat and see some question you want to answer, you're welcome. We have time. We're actually first time on time, so yeah.
Hola José, ¿cómo estás? No te vi acá. Yo me llamo Eliyahu. Yo me llamo Eliyahu y no Shalom. Vengo a buscarte a Madrid uno de esos días. ¿Ok? Tenemos mucho que hablar.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I remember you, and yes, I want to see you in Israel, in Spain, in Italy, anywhere.
Okay, great. So any actual questions from the audience here, or if you see something on chat, Jose?
Yes, I see someone wanting to help in Russia. Thank you very much, Olga, for your help. Actually, I will be next week in Moscow. So if you are in Moscow, contact me. I will be the whole week in Moscow. Also, Sharon Gal-Or from Israel is talking about the billions of dollars that people like Sam Altman is doing, and many others are putting. So yes, this is exploding. That is why I am organizing this rally. And we have balloons. Look at our balloons. Stop aging in Spanish. And with the Spanish flag and banners and all of that, we are talking about this in Spain, also in Washington. We are organizing a rally for longevity, a big one. We expect to have 500,000 people in the spring of 2026. This is big, big, big. 500,000 people in the Washington Mall, in between the White House and the Lincoln Memorial in Washington. So we have to push for these rallies, for these events, like we do in Madrid and we do in other places. So please join us, and thank you for your comments and your help. Or Shagra with Health Longevity Nation in Israel, Sharon Gal-Or, also for translating my book in Hebrew, for Olga for helping in Russia, and I hope to see you in Moscow if you are there. And Ilya, all that you are doing in Israel. This is important. We need more people like you in Israel, anywhere. People like you that will help us to kill death before death kills us.
Thank you, Mr. Jose. I agree with what you say, and I think that positioning the longevity in Israel as well as in the other parts of the world as you do is a blessed movement, and this is the way to change the attitude of politicians, of society, of medicine towards taking the right measures to improve life expectancy and the level of longevity in our life, and not waiting for others to do this. So thank you for your movement.
Well, thanks to you. And yes, we need to work in every city, in every country to accelerate this movement, because every day over 110,000 people die of age-related causes. Aging is the biggest killer in the planet. It is not the Russians. It is not the Chinese. It's not the Americans. It's not the Europeans. It is aging. Aging is the enemy of humanity. It is not the Martians that apparently don't exist. It is aging, the biggest enemy. So we are between the last mortal generation and the first immortal generation. And we have to accelerate this in the private sector, but also in the public sector. And this is what we are trying to do in so many initiatives, like I mentioned, Health Longevity Nation as well. So thank you. This is the work of all of us.
Thank you very much, Jose. Again, indeed, it's great the movement is growing, the longevity movement. Hopefully it will grow more. And indeed, this vision fits perfectly into the topic of the session, which is visions of the future. We need to have a vision of the future to even continue. Everything doesn't end with our current political agendas. We have to look for the longer term. And that's great that thanks to visions like this, we can move forward. Next is another visionary, Natasha Vita-More. Natasha is is one of the founders of Humanity Plus, formerly World Transhumanist Association, a long-time leader of this movement, also important. So that's also part of her introduction. And now she's with NMV Productions, but of course she's very active in many organizations, including International Longevity Alliance, and she will speak about the art of healthy longevity. Commit, don't quit. Please, Natasha, the floor is yours.
I didn't start Humanity Plus, but I am one of the pioneers of the philosophy of extra P, the original transhumanist concept. But I am a member of Humanity Plus, and I value it very much. Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Ilya, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm so glad that all of us could make it virtually, although it wasn't our first choice. My talk is on the art of healthy longevity, commit, don't quit. By art, I don't mean art per se. I mean the art of something, the state of the art. The art in a field, in a career, in anything that we do as a skill is the meaning to be adept and excel at it. For healthy longevity, what I mean is to be highly skilled and proficient in the practice of healthy longevity. It's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to theorize about it. And many of us who are scientists and academics, we know what it's like to be in a lab and do our research. However, all of us as advocates and practitioners can be skilled and proficient at our own personalized longevity practice. I think that critical thinking is essential here, and I'll get to that at the end of my talk. We need to be careful as we analyze the different therapies, as we use the different therapies, with a dash, I might say, of skepticism. I say this because the longevity field, which is a movement and an industry, is expanding fast. I think José pretty much covered that. And there's room for zealous signaling, social pressure, and echo chambers rather than taking time to gain knowledge and to learn about your own body and brain, which includes the mind, to approach health with a pragmatic sensibility. So that's my pitch. And there you go. In this talk, I'll share my 4 Encore longevity practice. It's something I've been working on for a while, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But I've written about this in numerous published papers, books, scientific research, and my own practice-based firsthand experience on what works for me. And I think what I learned from that is the most important element. It's that what works for me might not and probably won't work for you. And I think that when we look at healthy longevity, we need to really be aware that every body is different and to accept that and then therefore be proficient about our own. So my goal is to develop opportunities for others. Remember, I'm an academic, so I'm used to teaching, and I'm used to having students who ask me questions, and I think that's really important. So just to be explicit here, for all of you to think about where you fit in, I'm going to show you how I brought this together for myself. I look back over time and I thought, what have I done? How can I really be a proficient in 4 Encore longevity? Let me take a look at what I've done. And then I took the time to sit back and go, oh my goodness, I studied for 3.5 years at the Yoga College of India with the world's leading yoga athlete, let's call him. I have spent well over 6,000 hours, 6,000 hours of my life weight training. I have a high level of fast impact athletics, skiing down the longest and steepest slope in North America. I am an expert at low impact athletics, and I've devoted 50 years of my life to transcendental meditation. I've made that meditation part of my routine. And I think that's important when we look at what we do to reduce stress in our lives. And so with that said, I pull that into everyday habits. Exercise, I'm pretty clear on what I know about that. Nutrition, very clear. I have a certification in sports nutrition and fitness. So I've studied nutrition. Community and companions, I'm here and I love you all. And I have so many friends and family, but my main companions are my canines, my 2 dogs, and of course my husband. But my community is pretty solid in my friendships that I've nurtured over the years, as many of you have. And I had a complaint from someone at a talk I gave recently about that. And the person said, I have this particular illness and I can't have many friends. And that's fine. You don't need a large community. You don't need to put on a conference with 50,000 people. If you have 3 good friends, even 2 people who are your confidants, that is great. And the last point here in 4 on core is optimal rest. I have a difference of opinion about sleep. And in antiquity, when the athletes and the experts in longevity in China and India, in Greece, and during the Enlightenment, during the Renaissance, they looked at sleep differently. You didn't have to have 8 hours full sleep a night. You could break it into sections. So that's something also to take a look at, which could be something that is a misnomer, or maybe even a fallacy that we need a continuous sleep. We know we need REM, REM 2, REM 3, and deep sleep, but it may not need to be consistent. The issue about exercise is so important for all of us. With that, there's flexibility, there is the strength and endurance. With nutrition, there's the food that we eat. It doesn't have to be Mediterranean. In fact, it can be anything that you choose. For example, I choose paleo. And in my paleo, it's a lot of fish and white meat, but largely, just want to go back to that slide, I prepare my food with a sensibility of the utensils I'm using and my cooktop. I use a specific electric cooktop that is better than gas for maintaining the nutrition in the food. So when we talk about nutrition, it's just not the Mediterranean diet or eating 80% of your food on your plate, which is a Japanese perspective, which I do agree with, but it's how we cook. Now, going back to our companions and community and colleagues, that area that is so important for our well-being. What's interesting here, again, it doesn't have to be a whole group of people. It can be 1 or 2 select people that you trust for your confidence. And that takes us to the optimal rest, which in my view doesn't have to be the full sleep. It can be how you reduce stress in life. Remember, I have 50 years of transcendental meditation. I take that throughout my day, a bit here and a bit there when I need it. So one of the best areas in the optimal rest is to find out where your stress buttons are, how they're being pushed, and what you can do to reduce that in whatever way you choose. And it very well may be that bed, but if not, you can take that sensibility throughout your life. So in looking at these areas, the exercise, the nutrition, the community or colleagues or cohorts, and optimal relaxation or rest, I did a survey to see what other people in our larger longevity community are doing. I received hundreds of responses and I've narrowed it down for you all. Going over this, I just want to make a few comments. One of the questions was, can you commit? And my talk is about commit, don't quit. This is really important. What are your habits? Be honest with yourself. I have many mistakes and many bad habits that I look at, and some of them I'll accept and allow because my better habits overrun the weak habits. I don't think we need to aspire to be rigid in our longevity practice. I think it's really important to be flexible. So take a look at this. Can you commit? Yes, the largest group, 57%, but not everyone said yes. Now look at this, almost 30% of those who took this survey said, I would like to, if it's not expensive and not time consuming. So there is a glitch here. We don't put this issue of committing to doing what it takes to be healthy as a priority. If so, 100%, 90%, even 75% of the respondents in the survey would have said, yes, I'll do what it takes, but we're not willing to do what it takes. My question is why? The second part of this, only 5 questions, I like short surveys. Are you able to cultivate new habits in your daily routine that can benefit you? If we look at the responses here, the largest response was sometimes, if I think that change is positive for me. So there's a bit of a ego getting in there, but that's good because, as I said earlier, what we need to look at our personalized longevity habits as being thus personalized. What works for me may not work for you, and vice versa. The third question, do you think about how to eliminate bad habits that disrupt your having a good day? Well, some of us just don't think about it. We just have a bad day, get stressed out, and move on and just put it aside. But I'll say that I think it's really important to contemplate. Not ruminate, but at least contemplate. If you look at this, what the answer is, the largest is frequently. A number of people said yes, which is great. Some said always, and some said often, and some said rarely. But here there are qualifiers too. One says always I think about my bad habits when I see them. Some said frequently I see my bad habits, I do my best to get rid of them, but I don't completely stop them. And there are a few that said yes, but if my bad habits don't really bother me, why should I stop my bad habits? Which I find really interesting. Number 4, are you willing to improve your exercise routine to include all areas of exercise? As I said earlier, it's flexibility, endurance, quick, high, strong impact exercise, jogging, is good, but sprinting is better for the heart. It builds up the heart, the fibers around the heart. Flexibility is great for everyone. Pilates, yoga, your choice. So even just moving is great. You don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to follow my protocol. You can just get up and move and walk and smell the roses, and that's good enough. So looking at this, the largest number said, okay, it's possible for me to improve my exercise routine if it is not expensive and not time consuming. So what I've found so far through these 4 answers was that there is a common denominator, cost and time. So it doesn't have to cost really much to exercise. In fact, it doesn't have to cost a thing. Time. You can do it throughout the day just by getting up and walking, by moving, and we all have time to move. In fact, if we don't move, then we better start thinking about the entropy of the cellular and molecular structure of our bodies, because it is in our bone density, it is in our muscle mass, it is in our ability of our central nervous system to communicate the information through our neurons to our brain, and it's highly essential that we exercise our brain for brain plasticity. The last question, I did this as an interesting one. Do you want others to think you look like a longevity advocate? Meaning walk the walk. Do you want to look like someone who is healthy? Do you care how you look or what others think of you? And I found the answers to this to be very interesting. The majority of respondents, through the hundreds who responded, said, extremely important, I want to look great and be great. I don't need recognition. I love that. I thought that was so great that people want to look good, feel good, have that sensibility, that commitment, but don't need the recognition of being a leader. That is great because not all of us are leaders, not all of us can be leaders. In fact, we may think about who our leaders are. I mean, there have been some fallacies. I'll get to that in a moment. But what I found interesting is a number of people here in this blue area said, not important. I don't focus on what others think my role is or how I look. I found that a little bit defensive, but I wanted to see if there was that within our community. And I think that's really interesting. I kind of admire it, even though I don't necessarily agree with it. I do admire and respect it. So by all of that, I think it's really important for in our longevity routine of what we eat, how we exercise, our level of psychological nourishment through friends, through love, through our partners, and just being with people who make us feel good and respect us, very important. And the rest, the relaxation, the reduction of stress and getting into that deep sleep for at least 15 minutes, I think it's really important for us to take a look at what's going on in our community. Not all therapies will be best for you. And I say you in capital letters. We each are different and have different needs. We have different genders, different body types, different age groups, different demographics, etc. at all. We need to check the facts. And I mentioned the blue zones here because I just wanted to select one. There's many, believe me, in my research that I've uncovered of fallacies and misinformation. But I think the blue zones are very important because they focus on the same areas that I focus on, that I've been focusing on for over 40 years. The blue zones over the last few years have gotten a lot of attention and made important headway in helping people understand the world around them and their place in it, and to at least think about nutrition and community, etc. But there's also some fabrication in some of the details, the numbers, for example. In one country, 80% of the people that were said to live over 100 were dead. I'll just use that one example, and that is a fact. If anyone wants to email me, I'll send you my research on this. But not all people that were recorded to live to 100 and 110 and over actually were alive during that. And there's some reasons for that, some a little bit of fraud in getting government monies and claiming people were alive, and there's certain status for countries to say we have older people. But it's also, I think, not so intentional. Perhaps there is a bit of unintentional behavior there. Sometimes it's just not recorded or the records are sloppy. So we need to really think about when we're promoting areas like blue zones, and I'm one who's been an advocate of blue zones, to stop and pause and think, well, let's be critical about this and look at the numbers and look at the evidence there. And I think the same thing with longevity clinics. There's so many popping up around the world. I just gave a talk on this in Europe recently, and I found that many of the clinics are producing therapies that haven't been proven to be effective. I'll give one example of a clinic in Beverly Hills where the medical team, who were renowned, were providing fabricated stem cells to patients and charging them tens of thousands of dollars. Now, there was a lawsuit, and yes, those doctors were indicted, and it's a big issue. But it's beyond that. I think the important thing is that just because it says it does something doesn't mean it does. So we need to watch out for, I put the words here, virtual signaling, bandwagon effect, false hope, social pressure, and echo chambers. Let's be smart in our healthy longevity. Let's think about the art, the state of the art, the cutting edge, and also the ability to aspire to go beyond the norm, to be as rich and smart in our thinking and in our actions as possible. And I think that means the highly skilled and proficient longevity routine or habits that each of us have in our many ways. We can learn from each other. We can help teach each other how to be better in our lives so that we can live as long as possible, as healthy as possible. So to echo what I said earlier, please commit to your own health, don't quit, and look at the state of the art, the cutting edge knowledge, the therapies that do work, and what we can do to achieve a better, longer life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natasha, for the heartwarming presentation. Any questions from the audience? And as with Jose, please Natasha, please read your chat. If you see any questions you want to answer, you're welcome to do so.
Let me see.
Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, please.
So in terms of, you say that it's important to personalize our protocols. So how do you recommend to do it? Tracking by some smartwatches, maybe blood tests? Like, What's the right way?
There are so many ways to do it. I mean, the industry and the movement is flooded with devices to track. I've got my ring on right here that Joanna Bentz gave me from the Longevity Center in Warsaw. I wear it every day. It tracks my sleep. There are so many devices. In fact, there's so many apps that people are using today on their smart devices to better track what they're doing. If any of you have learned a new language, like French or Spanish or Russian, for example, and you've used Duolingo, you know full well what a team player Duolingo is. It will remind you that you need to take a lesson. It'll remind you that you need to get up and pay attention. And that's what these apps are doing. They're friendly reminders, egging you on to be more proficient, egging you on to engage and get up and move and pay attention to the world around us. And I think we need more of that. One area that I think that is really needed for that is to remind us when something is going a little bit stressful, or you're seeing a little bit of negativity amongst your immediate group or something that you're doing, your interactions, have a buzzer there and get away, stop it, move on. It's a waste of time. And when people say they don't have time to exercise or prepare healthy food, or at least pay attention to it, but they have the time to let someone else scold them inappropriately or be around negativity, I say, let's get our priorities straight. We have time to be healthy. We don't have time to put up with stress. And thanks to the apps. So to answer your question, yes, the apps. I don't want to get into blood work and all that. I think that the longevity clinics, the many of them that are great, know that. And we all know that we need to have our blood work done once every 6 months or at least once a year. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Natasha. And I hope we will all progress in our longevity regimens. Then it's my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Fiona Miller from Quadrascope Foundation, also a great supporter of this conference as well, also a visionary in the longevity industry. And one of her projects is supporting biochange of Ishai Attar that spoke earlier on the first day. With the regeneration platform. So it is great pleasure to have you on board. Fiona Miller, please.
So thank you, Ilya. I run a venture fund in Boston. And actually, Quadrascope Ventures is well represented here. Two of my co-panelists here, two co-speakers in the session, Aubrey and José, are both advisors, and I see another one of our investors and valuable advisors, Robert Cargill, also in the audience. So it's great to have you all. As an investor, I bring a few stories of companies in our portfolio, real life stories of how they're working to solve aging. But before I start, I just want to say a few words about I've been watching the news about Israel every day, and I'm just amazed at the remarkable competence, ingenuity, and valor that Israel has exhibited for over a year now, defending itself. And no less impressive is that Ilya has the chutzpah to run this conference in the midst of this ring of fire. This conference is dedicated to health and huge optimism for perpetual life. So with that, I'm gonna state what is the problem here. It's not new to any of you. As we age, we get hundreds of diseases, and these diseases really are symptoms of the damage that happens in our bodies as we age. And our conventional healthcare system treats the symptoms for decades until we die. And they don't really cure older people because they're not treating root causes. And root causes are these dozen hallmarks of aging. There may be more. Some speakers earlier in this conference pointed to other things that cause aging. We'll touch upon some of them. But there are a dozen root causes and hundreds of diseases. And for example, each of the hallmarks say take cellular senescence. This long list of diseases, there are companies now in clinical trials to cure these diseases by treating cellular senescence. Take this long list, and it's growing because inflammation, chronic inflammation, we're uncovering more and more damage that it does. And so all of these diseases and more are attributable to chronic inflammation. So that's how a dozen hallmarks translate into hundreds of diseases. Each one can be treated with the result of treating multiple diseases. So longevity healthcare, each of the longevity companies we invest in is really a platform. They need to treat a disease to go to the FDA and get to market with some disease that they treat. That's just how it works. But the companies we invest in understand the hallmarks and root causes, and they focus on those. And with that, they have a platform whereby they may treat, if you pick a hallmark, and you can treat any number of diseases by addressing one or more hallmarks. And so that's really the paradigm of longevity healthcare, longevity biotech companies. And with this paradigm, we already have, if you use that paradigm, we already have a longevity drug or maybe a couple of obesity drugs on the market. And they are blockbuster drugs. So take, for example, semaglutide from Novo Nordisk, Ozempic. It came to market to treat a disease, just like all of our companies, 2017, nothing unusual. But look, in 2021, it got approved for treating a root cause, something that's really a root cause, and it's obesity. And just this year, it's basically the same drug, just under different names. And just this year, it got approved for treating serious cardiovascular conditions like heart attack and stroke. And it's in clinical trials for more diseases. But there's a problem here. So the patients on obesity drugs today lose up to 30% of their muscle mass. And losing up to 30% of your muscle mass is not a good longevity strategy. And so a true longevity company to the rescue. So many of you may know BioAge just went public in September last month, and they are already partnering with Eli Lilly and looking to partner with Novo Nordisk. Both of these companies have obesity drugs that cause their users to lose muscle mass. And BioAge, their drug, azelaprag, actually increases muscle mass, and so it counteracts this bad effect. But we have an even more exciting story. One of our portfolio companies, Immunis, they went to the FDA. Their FDA endpoint originally was muscle atrophy, so they started with the muscle, and they started running a trial on people who are immobilized due to osteoarthritis. And their trial was so successful, they actually discovered that they also treat obesity with that same treatment. So why is that? That's because that's a true longevity drug. They are focusing and doing a terrific job, just outstanding job, on chronic inflammation, which causes a lot of problems for all of us. And the way they're doing it, so this is a hallmark they're treating, but they're going up to the immune system. And this is not a typical drug. It's not a single molecule drug. It is a secretome of immune system progenitor cells. What this means is it's secretions of immune system stem cells. There are more than 400 proteins specifically selected to treat chronic inflammation very effectively. And that's really a big step up over cell therapy, because these are mass-produced, non-immunogenic types of drugs. They're accessible to everyone. And And so now their trial is going so well, they just got approved for obesity trial by the FDA. They have a big pharma who stepped in to help them define this trial. They have a network of hospitals who offered non-dilutive funding to run this trial just to make it available early to their clients. Another story, the company called Deciduous, again, going back to the immune system. They are treating these diseases, pulmonary fibrosis and type 2 diabetes, by treating cellular senescence. Now, there were some interesting speakers early in the conference telling us about senescent cells. Not all of them are harmful. Some of them are good. The National Institute of Aging, NIA, which is under NIH, they now have a project of senescent cell atlas where they're mapping and defining the different types of senescent cells, whether they're good or bad and what their function is. But Deciduous knows their senescent cells. They know the specific ones and how to identify them, the ones that cause these diseases, which are their target. And they created a kind of a vaccine. So again, with the immune system, they are training natural killer T cells to kill these specific senescent cells that cause this disease. So we keep coming back to the immune system. It was mentioned a number of times through this conference. Is it at the center of it all? It's very powerful. We know that the hallmarks interact. If you fix, for example, if Menobia, who spoke earlier, fixes the mitochondria for us and gives us all youthful mitochondria, all of the hallmarks will get better. We expect most of them. And so in my mind, it's just a personal opinion, is that there's so many companies out there that we talk to as a fund that are all specializing. Each of them is specializing on a hallmark or two or more, and let them solve that. Each hallmark that they solve is a piece of the puzzle. It will help everything else. And in the end, the puzzle will come together. We don't know how long it will take. But every step, every progress with one company at a time, we're going to be moving towards our goal. Now, so Ilya mentioned biochange earlier, so I'm going to start with this context here. Is there a missing hallmark? And is this hallmark perhaps the most important one of all? And so let's look at extracellular matrix. I linked here to this Russian scientist's work, Fedintsev. He's basically saying that this is the limiting thing that's going to limit our life. There are few companies trying. We don't have a solution today for rejuvenating or fixing it. So extracellular matrix is mostly collagen and elastin. These are long-living proteins. Collagen is with us about 7 years. It doesn't turn over, and there's no good mechanism to fix it. It doesn't turn over often. Elastin is with us pretty much our whole lives. So many of you probably know about glycation end products. They accumulate, they're sticky proteins. They accumulate on the ECM, make it hard. They harden it. When you harden the blood vessels, you get high blood pressure, all kinds of cardiovascular issues. You harden the lungs, you limit their elasticity, skin, etc. So that's a real issue. We talked to one company that's trying to clear these glycation end products, AGEs, from the lens of the eye to treat presbyopia, to return this elasticity to the lens, to allow us to focus and read without glasses, near far focus. So BioChange is an Israeli company. It's probably our favorite company among many favorites that we have. And it is regenerating extracellular matrix. They have a biomaterial which Ishai talked about on day one. It mimics embryonic extracellular matrix. Now, embryonic is a key word here, because when you're in the embryonic state, when you're an embryo, the cells know they have signal from this tissue to go build, and they go on this tissue and they can talk to each other and build whatever tissue they happen to be in. So if you're in the bone and you inject this material, there are bone-specific stem cells that will know which tissue to build. So the first market BioChange is addressing is periodontal disease, which is caused by receding gums. So as we age, we form these pockets in between our teeth because the bone recedes and the gums just follow. And eventually, when the bone recedes, we are losing our teeth. Basically, they drop out. And so what they did this year, they went to market to treat dogs, a veterinary market, and they have just nothing short of remarkable results. Now take a look at this, the pockets here, and look at that new bone. Now this just doesn't happen today, and yet here we are. Now this is super exciting to me. Here's another example. These are awesome images, computer tomography. Bone completely almost degenerated and porous within 4 months. And there's bone back there. So that's really incredible. And BioChange is looking now with the war going on at wound healing. They have also super promising results, too early to show. But this is going to be a very interesting company. So I probably am coming to the end of my time. We're a new fund. We've been around for just a little over a year. We have looked at over 300 companies. We talk to companies almost every day. We've made 13 investments. And our companies are diversified across the hallmarks. There's also a good mix of clinical and preclinical companies here. And within the year, we don't have official fund metrics like TPVI, but more than half of the companies have already are marked up in a meaningful way. These comparables here that we have in this column, they really are indicative of substantial potential returns for our companies. And we also have among our portfolio all of these partnerships with these big pharma and healthcare companies. We can't tell you who's partnered with whom, it's confidential information, but this really speaks to the market viability of our portfolio and also to their solid scientific foundation. And with that, I'm going to end. I'm more than happy to talk further to any one of you. We're still raising our fund and hope to channel more money to all these wonderful companies, including in Israel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Fiona. Once again, if any questions in the audience, or Fiona, if you see any questions in the chat that you want to read out for yourself. Any questions in the audience here?
Nothing, but happy to talk to anyone later on.
Absolutely, and once again, thank you very much, Fiona, for your vision, for your leadership, as well as for your friendship and support and partnership. And I hope to see you actually in person in Longevity Nation 25, when it's not a ring and fire, but a beautiful, flourishing garden all over not just Israel, but the Middle East. We keep the optimistic vision always. Thank you.
We'll be there. You just have to solve jet lag first.
Yes. All right. So last but certainly not least is Dr. Aubrey de Grey, who now heads the LEV Foundation, Longevity Escape Velocity Foundation, formerly head of the SRF, Sense Research Foundation, actually the author of the entire Sense concept, strategies for engineered negligible senescence. If anybody knows who Aubrey is, did an amazing work for drawing attention to the problem of aging, to the possibility to address aging, to actually intervene into aging as a medical condition. Also very happy to be able to call a friend and partner. Actually, some due diligence. Aubrey was one of the reviewers of both my PhD proposal and of my actual PhD dissertation here at the Department of Science, Technology and Society in Bar-Ilan University. So very happy to give the floor to Aubrey if he is online, if there are not any technical issues. And also Didier Cornell, also a friend and partner from HELIS, Healthy Life Extension Society, may make some short intervention connected to Aubrey's presentation and Aubrey's work. So here you go, Aubrey, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Ilya. So I want to start by making a small apology. I am doing this talk from an airport, and so it's possible that we may be interrupted by announcements from the, like that, for example. But they haven't been happening very often, so I'm hoping it won't be too disruptive. So as Ilya just mentioned, I want to start my talk by giving the floor for a couple of minutes to an absolute hero of this field, Didier Cornell, who has been a substantial supporter of my various foundations for many years, and who at the moment is funding a challenge grant to LEV Foundation, which officially ends tomorrow. He has put up, really a substantial proportion of his own net worth to support the work that we do, which I'll be telling you about in a moment. And he has done it as a matching challenge. So anything that anyone else gives by the end of tomorrow will be doubled by Didier. So I will let him have the floor for a couple of minutes.
Yes, so really a few seconds. We see objects extraordinarily small. We see objects extraordinarily distant. We benefit from more energy and goods than ever. We have instant access to more knowledge today than everything until the 20th century. And actually, for most people here, online or in Israel, there is nothing really necessary that we cannot pay. Well, nothing but years of life. And we do not live much more longer than 2000 years ago. And the maximal lifespan of humans is even lower today than it was when Jean Calment died more than 20 years ago. And what many longevists do not know or forget is that there is also no real progression since many years for mice. To change this, one of the few ways is what is done by the Longevity Escape Velocity Foundation and by Aubrey de Grey. It is to progress for tests on mice. We need this, and all longevity specialists I know agree about the fact that the first phase of this experiment was successful, interesting, no problem. But we need a second phase and then other phases of this experiment. And for reasons I do not understand, really, I do not understand why, there is no money at the moment to start the second phase of the study. And that's why, like Aubrey said, that I gave 200,000 euro last month, and that during this month I will match all gifts until 200,000 euro also. So please help me to become poor and help to make research for longevity faster. The amount of money necessary is nothing compared to the cost of wars, and nothing compared to the cost of cosmetics, and nothing compared to the potential benefits for billions of people. That's all. Thank you for listening.
Well, thank you so much, Didier. And above all, thank you so much for your enormous generosity in helping this work to happen. It is, there's no words to describe how important this is. So thank you so much. Okay, well, so now I'm going to try and share my screen, and let's see if I can find some slides. Here we go, share. I hope that's working. Let me just go show that mode. Okay, could somebody confirm that that's actually working and you can see my slides on the screen? So I'm just going to give a brief description of what we're doing at LEV Foundation and what we intend to do, as Didier mentioned. I know that most people in the audience are pretty familiar with my past work and how I look at aging and how I look at the options for doing anything about it. So I will just give a very brief background in that regard. I always start by highlighting this question, the paradoxical question, why the health problems of late life are so much more resistant to medical intervention than the health problems of early life that used to kill so many people, even in the wealthiest countries in the world, until the last century or so. And of course, the way that I look at this is as a problem of preventative maintenance. I think it's very important to recognize that since the human body is a machine, albeit a really complicated one, we should be able to extend its fully functioning longevity by the same kind of approach that we use to extend the fully functioning longevity of simple man-made machines like this one. The key thing here is this car is more than 100 years old, and it did not get that way by having been originally designed to last 100 years. Not at all. It was probably designed to last 10 years, but preventative maintenance has completely transcended that warranty period. So what that means in terms of medical intervention against aging in living organisms such as humans is this. We have a hugely complex network of processes that keep us alive from one day to the next, and that is what I'm calling here metabolism. That's the word that biologists use to describe that network. And then late in life, we have the pathologies of late life. The reason why the pathologies of late life are not something that happens throughout life is because there is this intermediate set of changes at the molecular and cellular level, which I'm calling damage. And those changes do occur throughout life, but the body is set up to tolerate a certain amount of them. So there is no functional consequence to speak of until middle age or older. And what this means is that our goal is to separate metabolism from pathology, to allow us to continue being alive without getting sick. And the approach that has dominated medical attempts to do this is what I'm calling geriatrics, which essentially ignores the damage that accumulates throughout life and tries to go after the pathologies directly as if they were infections. And lo and behold, it doesn't work at all, really. We've made hardly any progress in postponing those health problems, as Didier mentioned. Then we've got what I'm calling the gerontology approach, which a few people started to realize might be better even a century ago. And that's where the whole field of gerontology came from, inspired, of course, by the living world, in which we see a huge variation in different species in terms of how rapidly they age. But that has also been unsuccessful, essentially because the creation of damage is too inextricably intertwined with the things that we need metabolism to do to keep us alive. So the innovation that I introduced 24 years ago now was to say, well, okay, if these processes can't be attenuated, let us instead separate those processes from each other by doing preventative maintenance, which means going in and every so often removing some or most of the damage that metabolism is generating so that it does not reach the pathogenic threshold. And in specific terms, I enumerated way back then 7 major categories of aging damage. So this was the original hallmarks concept before hallmarks were cool. And I personally still think that it's a rather better description than any of the more upstart versions that have come along lately. Not least, it includes the stiffening of the extracellular matrix that Fiona mentioned a moment ago. And the point of this classification, which is somewhat missed, I believe, in the more recent hallmarks papers, is that each of these categories corresponds to a generic approach to actually doing the maintenance, actually restoring the molecular and cellular structure. Furthermore, progress has been made, a lot of progress in those 20-odd years. So first of all, I want to emphasize that there are now multiple different approaches to each of these things. If, for example, cell loss used to be only something that could be addressed using stem cell therapy. And now we have the concept of partial reprogramming, which essentially rejuvenates and increases the stemness of resident cells. And so we may not need to use stem cell therapy for everything anymore. The same is true across the board, across all of the other 6 categories. And furthermore, as again Fiona mentioned, this has now been able to progress into the private sector. So we are looking at startup companies, looking at all of these things, and that is very encouraging. But there are some problems when we think about how to translate this to the clinic. Yes, there are great opportunities. Damage repair seems to be the most promising way to go in terms of benefiting people who are already in middle age, and it will benefit people who are progressively older as treatments improve. Furthermore, there is a clear synergy with the longevity treatments that are more in the way of the gerontology approach, as I called it earlier, things like calorie restriction mimetics. So, this is all good news. But there are challenges. The first thing is that this damage repair approach is inherently a divide and conquer approach, such that one needs to do multiple different things to the same individual at the same time. And those things are inherently hard to interpret and thus to refine. A huge problem that we also have is that across the whole world, we have regulatory structures for approval of medical treatments that have been designed and optimized for pharmaceuticals. And they are really not fit for purpose when we think about gene therapies and cell therapies, which is absolutely going to be necessary for this. Furthermore, they're really not built for combination therapies. And so this, needs to be modernized. And unfortunately, there's another problem, which is slowing down the pressure to modernize regulatory structures, and that is that the public are inherently suspicious of preventative medicine. Of course, this is only preventative medicine in the sense that it's designed for people who are not yet sick. It is, of course, also a treatment in the sense that it genuinely eliminates damage that's already occurred in the body. But, the fact that people are not yet sick is kind of the point from the point of view of the public. The public, who are very bad at reasoning about uncertainty, tend to be worried more about the possibility that some new medicine might accidentally make them sick, rather than the fact that it might delay how soon they get sick. So what are we doing about that at LEV Foundation? Well, we're not working on humans, we're only working on mice. And of course, we know all the problems that, that exist for translating mouse work to the clinic. But first of all, we feel that translation is likely to have a higher hit rate for damage repair interventions than for pharmaceuticals. And indeed, the interactions between those damage repair interventions should be more predictable. Both of these things we feel simply because damage repair is not trying to interfere with metabolism. It's leaving metabolism alone and just interfering with changes that are essentially inert initially and are not participating in metabolism. So I'm going to talk about the study we're doing, the robust mouse rejuvenation study, and in particular, the first iteration of it, which has been happening since early last year, and it's nearly complete. And then I'll also talk about what we want to do in the future. So I've told you a few things about the problems, the challenges that are faced here. Another challenge that's really important is that combining things that already exist and that are owned by other people, if they're patentable at all, it doesn't generate significant new intellectual property. So it's hard to make it attractive to investors. Moreover, it's hard to make it attractive to academics because we're not really testing hypotheses, we're not really exploring mechanisms of action. So we've got to do this, but it's hard. It's hard to get funding for it. A huge part of the reason why we have to do it, though, is that it may be able to break down the public skepticism and ambivalence that I mentioned a moment ago. If we can do really powerful extension of lifespan in mice, then it will make it difficult to believe that we'll never do it for humans, even if there may be differences in the actual intervention. And so what we mean by a dramatic improvement is we want to add a whole year to the lifespan of normal mice using these interventions. Now, of course, that can already be done with calorie restriction, but only if you start early in life. If you start in middle age, so what I mean by that is around 1.5 years old for mice that normally live to about 2.5, then the most that anyone's ever achieved is about 4 months. So we want to treble that. We want to get 3 times as much effect as anyone's got before. And we believe that if we can do that, that will be, the AlphaFold moment, the moment when people really get that this new approach of damage repair can be very much more powerful than anything we've tried in the past. So that's what we're doing. We're starting with middle-aged normal mice, and we're trying to extend their lifespan. And the question then, of course, is how do we choose which interventions to combine? So I'll get to that in a moment. But first of all, I want to emphasize that when you're doing a study with a lot of interventions, in our case, 4 interventions, then it's a really big study, because you don't just have a treatment group and a control group. You also have to have partial treatments. So what we have here is, of course, a control group that's not getting these things, and also a treatment group that's getting all 4 things. But we also have to make sure that we're doing the experiment correctly. We have to validate our interventions. So we have to have groups that are getting only one of the interventions individually. And we also want to identify those antagonistic interactions where interventions might cancel each other out. And so that's why we have groups getting all but one of the interventions. So that's 10 treatment groups, which means we are looking at 1,000 mice, 500 male, 500 female. And I apologize for the tannoy. I'll wait for a moment. Really good. So you can see on the left, we are doing all manner of health span measures as well as lifespan. We're doing visual things like alopecia and kyphosis. We're doing behavioral things, memory, deafness, blindness, grip strength, endurance. We're doing blood tests, doing a whole bunch of tests on things like glucose tolerance. And of course, we're sacrificing mice every so often and collecting tissues, including from the mice that die naturally, so that we can analyze them in ways that are more informative than non-invasive interventions. So yeah, as I say, it's a huge study. And that, of course, is why it costs so much. It cost $3.5 million, this study, and most of that money had to be found at the beginning because most of the interventions are done and the labor happens at the beginning. So here is what the things we're doing. We have one intervention that is not damage repair per se. It's a calorie restriction mimetic. Wait a second. And of course, that's rapamycin, the most effective calorie restriction mimetic that we have at the moment. We're giving rapamycin throughout the lifespan, starting at 18 months. So very similar to experiments that indeed began the whole rapamycin craze back from the interventions testing program more than a decade ago. We're also giving young bone marrow stem cells. So, of course, there's a huge amount of emphasis at the moment on plasma, on young plasma for old mice. Seems to be helpful, but we think the cellular component needs to be addressed as well. People have shown that if you do heterochronic bone marrow transplant, you get very substantial increase in lifespan. So we wanted to include that. Similarly, for telomerase gene therapy, which has been shown by Maria Blasco's group and others now to extend lifespan when started late in life. And finally, a senolytic, navitoclax, which we are administering in its prodrug form with conjugated to galactose, which reduces its toxicity. And so I've said all that already. And here are the results as they currently stand. You can see that the survival curves are not complete because the experiment is still ongoing. But we are definitely learning a lot from this. If you look at the 2 sexes, you can see quite significant differences. Let me focus you on the thick lines, the thick blue line and the thick red line, because those are the thick red line, of course, is the group getting all the interventions, and the blue line is getting none of them. And it's nice and clean in the females. The thick red line is better than all of the others, and the blue line is worse. And all the others, of course, are these 1 treatment or 3 treatment. And you can see that there is, nice additivity. Of course, different interventions are contributing different amounts, and there will be a huge amount of analysis once the study is complete, when we can do the statistics properly to get, to figure out what we can most confidently say. In the males, the story is a good deal more complicated. You can see that a couple of the treatment groups were actually doing worse than the controls for a while, though those ones have caught up, while other ones that were doing better have actually fallen away. But this is the kind of thing that one's going to expect in a big study like this, with lots of different hypotheses being tested all at the same time. The main point here, however, the main takeaway is we feel that this has very robustly validated the concept that we are pursuing here. We definitely are not getting a whole year of life extension. In fact, we are, right on the cusp of beating that 4-month life extension that I spoke about earlier, but we won't beat it by all that much. So one thing that we definitely are considering, subject, of course, to funding, is including more than 4 interventions next time. Let me talk a little bit about what we're hoping to do. One thing that we absolutely want to remember and never forget is that the same interventions that we're doing now may work better at different doses. The stem cells in particular for the bone marrow, we had to compromise relative to the published study from other groups because of cost. And we could have given them more stem cells if we had more budget. But the point is, we do desperately need to do more of these studies. Our first design for a follow-up study is described at the URL right in the center of your screen in green, levf.org/RMR2. That has been up and publicly available for nearly a year now, and we would have dearly loved to have begun it, at least 6 months ago. We believe that the study is an improvement on the one that we've just done and has a better chance of getting a very substantial increase in lifespan. And we are continuing to refine these designs of new studies while we try desperately to put together the funding to actually do them. I'll stop there. I'll just emphasize that my email address is public and it's always available. You can always write to me. I'm very well behaved with email. And of course, I want to thank our donors, without whom nothing could have happened at all, as well as our team at ICOR Life Sciences that have been performing the work, and our collaborators and advisors. For those of you who want to dig deeper into the science and justification and motivation of all of this, please have a look at the review paper that we published 6 months or so ago, which the URL is right there. And finally, again, I want to emphasize that anyone who feels they may be able to help financially, you will be saving a lot of lives if you do in the future. So there is the QR code for our donate page and also the URL itself at the bottom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aubrey. Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience? People who are still here, who still, keeping strong for longevity? Please, but ask in English.
Shalom, Audrey. When are you coming to Israel?
I don't know, to be honest, but of course I've been to Israel a few times before, invited indeed by Ilya, so I'm sure I'll be back.
Indeed, Aubrey was here as far away as 2013 and 2014 in the conferences we organized. One of the first longevity conferences in the world, specifically addressing aging as a medical condition. That's Aubrey's words, your words. I hope I'm not distorting anything. And we hope to see you in Longevity Nation 25 when the planes fly and and there are no rockets anywhere.
So just a technical question. So how old are the oldest mice still alive? And maybe there is still a chance that you beat, the limit by quite a lot if there are some living mice, remember?
Sure. Yeah, the oldest mice as of now are about 3¼ years old, so about 39 months. And we've got about 20 mice left of the original 1,000 mice. So yeah, I mean, I don't know whether we're going to beat any records for individual lifespan, but it's going to be very close. And of course, we're looking at that. We're also looking at average lifespan, and we're also looking at, you know, the usual measure of maximum lifespan, which is the age of the top 10% of mice. So yeah, we hope so. We don't know yet.
Aubrey, do you see some questions in the chat that you want to answer? If you have the ability to see them.
I do, but there's not actually much in the chat, but I do see a couple of hands up. Didier and Fiona have got their hands up.
Yeah, actually you can have their questions, you know, they can just speak, their co-host, so they can speak and just ask them directly. Welcome. Didier, Fiona?
Yes, two questions to you, Aubrey. The first one is, do you know if there are other organizations who are trying to do kind of the same as you are doing, copying you? And the second one is maybe there is one thing for me important. It's that the experiments normally for mice should be blind, you know, that the people, let's say, caring for the mice do not know if they are treated or not. And I think it was not really the case for the first phase. So are you taking some measures that, yeah, of course, it's probably not possible to be perfect, but at least that the people caring for the mice do not know about which mice are treated or not. That's all. That's all.
Yeah. So for the first question, there are other groups, and there seems to be a general consensus, as you mentioned, that these are valuable experiments that need to be done. But at the moment, the closest that we are at is combination experiments in which the only things that are being used are orally available things. So, of course, we've got one orally available thing, rapamycin. People are trying it with acarbose. People are trying metformin as well. You know, various combinations. Brian Kennedy, in particular, is doing quite a bit of this, but only with orally available interventions, not with anything that needs to be injected. And we believe that that's a fatal limitation. That, you know, you're really there's going to be a hard wall beyond which you're never going to get, unless you do cell therapies and gene therapies, as well as things that can be supplied in the chow. As regards blinding, yes. So of course, some things blinding is more important than for other things. So, for example, you don't have to worry about people knowing whether which treatment group a particular mouse comes from in order to measure its lifespan. You know, that's something that doesn't need blinding. And that's true for many of the other interventions, the ones that are just, you know, measuring body weight, for example, or things that are clearly quantitative and objective. The time when blinding is more important are cases where you're measuring things in where there is the possibility of observer bias. And those things tend to be the experiments that we haven't done yet. So as I mentioned, we've stored a lot of tissues, both fixed and frozen, and we are actively seeking collaborators to analyze those tissues. There, it certainly will make sense to do, at least in some cases, to do the analysis blinded, but we can certainly still do that. We have not in any way lost the ability, because we will be giving the tissues to other people. So, you know, we're not too worried about that. Now, you do make a good point in the chat, though, Didier, that the mice may actually get, you know, the technicians may somehow try harder to keep the treated mice alive rather than the untreated mice. But you know, that's something one can very clearly, you know, train technicians not to do. And the people that are working on this at ICOR have got a lot of experience of this, so I'm very confident that that won't have happened. It is a good point, though. There's a famous case during the Wisconsin calorie restriction study on monkeys that happened some years ago now, in which one technician did start feeling sorry for the calorie restricted monkeys, and started giving them more food than they were supposed to have. And that was picked up eventually.
Thank you. Thank you, Aubrey. And the last question from Fiona.
Hi, and just for the record, I'm Robert Cargill. I'm here with Fiona. So, hi Aubrey. Very nice presentation as usual. I had a couple of points. The first one was I'm very happy to see that you're including activity as part of RMR2, and I was hoping to hear a little bit more about how that's going to be distributed across the groups. I think that one of the really concerning confounds of the vast majority of mouse research that's been done to date is that it's been done on animals that are basically bored and fat because they're stuck in a cage and have nothing to do but eat. So first, if you can give us a little more detail on what you're planning there. And then the other confound that I see that drives me crazy is that we're doing all this work in animals that face no immune challenges, which is completely unrealistic considering that, a tremendous amount of disease and death in humanity is due to infectious diseases. So can you address whether or not there's any hope of getting some sort of controlled immune challenges into our longevity work? Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so for the first question, the way we've decided to do this, precisely because, as you say, exercise is very well established as an important thing to keep mice happy for longer. We're just going to give all the mice exercise. The way we're going to do it, we've just put running wheels in the cages. We may, depending on what on the logistics, we may actually put 2 running wheels in each cage so as to avoid any effect of dominance, because of course we've got multiple mice in each cage. And we're actually going to do the same thing for rapamycin, because again, it's really proven to work. So we're just going to give everyone rapamycin next time round. And the 4 things that, or more, the things that we're testing, with half the mice getting them and half not, will be additional things on top of those. As regards to the immune challenge, yes, I mean, you're quite right. It's incredibly difficult to do. I mean, otherwise it would be done, right? Because of course, what you've got to do is somehow standardize the immune challenge, and that means that the thing you're giving, the mice all have to get the same dose of the infection, things like that. Honestly, I think that at the moment that's probably likely to do more harm than good to interpretation of this experiment. But I'm very much open to input from immunologists. Of course, we talk to immunologists a lot with regard to any ideas that might be able to make that kind of thing work. I do agree with you that it is a confounder that's quite problematic.
Other questions from Fiona, from Didier, other speakers? No. Then I thank you very much, Aubrey. And this concludes our session and our 3rd day of the conference. We look forward to tomorrow, to the last day, which of course not the last day of our conferences. We'll immediately start thinking about Longevity Nation 25. But today was a great day. Thank you very much, everybody, for participation.
And thank you.
See you. Thank you. Bye-bye.